Hello, everyone. This is Esther Kane with the Senior Safety Advice YouTube channel. How are you? I hope you're okay. Today, I wanted to talk about something that I'm noticing a lot amongst some of my friends, where they are having to choose between their spouse and their elderly parents. And sometimes that becomes a little emotional. It becomes difficult to manage. And I mean, that just makes total sense, right? So I wanted to talk about some ways to that you can, if you find yourself in this situation, that you can navigate that kind of tug of war that you're finding yourself in. So obviously, people in this, and my friends included, are being pulled in two directions. I mean, they're having to care for their elderly parent, but at the same time, they're having to appease their spouse, who may or may not be so happy about them having to spend so much time in the caring of of their senior loved ones. But I want you to know, obviously, you're not alone in this situation. It's a very common scenario. I used to see it a lot as an occupational therapist. You're not doing anything wrong, and you just need to know probably some skills on how to navigate this time in your life, the struggle, because it really is a struggle, especially if you've been caring for your senior parents for a year, 2 years, 5 years. I mean, it's one thing to do it for several months or even a year, but it's another thing when it's an ongoing process where you basically, the spouse basically feels like he's lost or she's lost, her team, her spouse, because so much time is being dedicated to caring for the elderly parent. So I want to talk about how some tips on how you can balance the needs of your parents without necessarily neglecting your partner or your marriage or your relationship. The first thing that I want you to know is that I understand the guilt that is involved in this entire scenario, and that I think if I have to say any emotion dominates this entire um, time in your life, it's guilt. How do you accommodate both parties? It's a lot of pressure. How can you find a path forward that honors everyone, including yourself, because you can't neglect yourself either. So when aging parents need more help and your spouse is feeling, left behind, it can feel like you're standing in the middle of a storm, like you're not sure which way to turn, but there is a way out. So we're going to talk about that. So the very first thing I want to say is, why does it feel so hard? Why does this have to be so difficult? It isn't just about time and energy, which we all know are the two things besides finances. Time and energy are the two factors that are most taken from a caregiver when they're caring for a senior loved one. Um, it's also, all of this is also about, keeping your identity, keeping the identity of your relationship, your loyalty, not only to your partner, but also to your aging parents. And most often, if not always, childhood patterns will emerge. So if you had a difficult time growing up with your parents, if they were difficult, if you were difficult, if there's unresolved issues between all of you, then all of those are going to come out, sometimes in full force with even added drama, just because of the added pressure that is involved in this caring process, the added pressure, the guilt, just about every emotion you can imagine. So you may feel, of course, that you're responsible for your aging parent, and a lot of children do and should. But maybe you feel you're the only one in your family who is acting as the responsible one. Maybe you have siblings who have, hands off and they've left it all up to you, or they've just you're basically trapped in this situation where you can't move away. You're the closest one to your parents, where everyone else has moved away physically. They may be able to help virtually or maybe come in once in a while, but it's never the same as it is for someone who's there day in and day out. Um, at that point, then your partner may be saying, well, what about us? We used to have date nights every Wednesday night. I miss having you here on a Saturday night to watch our movies, or I miss going out to events with you, or I just miss you, period. Um, it seems like there's a no-win situation because of the time that you have to devote to your parents, or that you feel you have to devote to your parents, versus the time that you used to spend with your spouse. Of course, there are always issues of maybe your relationship with your partner hasn't been great and you're using caring for your spouse as an excuse to get away from them. Don't discount that as a possibility as well. And that's why I really and honestly encourage you to speak to someone, a counselor, a psychologist, anyone, a therapist that can help you through these emotions, to help you figure out what's going on and how to manage it. Because at the end of the day, if you end up wearing yourself down, then your parents are not going to be the only ones who need a caregiver. You will as well. Even if you can keep it up until they pass away, at that point, you will then need caregiving. I can't even begin to tell you, even amongst my friends, how many patients and how many friends I've seen go through that scenario where they've devoted so much time, so much energy to caring for their parents until they passed away. And then all of a sudden, within a month or two, they became seriously ill. Every illness from cancer to fibromyalgia all of a sudden popping up, to rare diseases all of a sudden coming, arthritis flaring up. I mean, just everything all of a sudden flares up, and it takes a few years often to get over that, if they even get over that. So don't put yourself at a place where you get yourself to a point where you're so exhausted mentally, physically, that your own immune system starts attacking you, breaking down on you, all of that. Just help yourself. The oxygen mask goes on you first. It has to. It simply has to. All right. So how do you acknowledge the guilt? You acknowledge it. You simply say, okay, yeah, I get it. I feel guilty about having to do all of this. Um, I feel guilty about not spending enough time with my mom. I feel guilty about not spending a time with my spouse, my teammate, my partner. It's okay to acknowledge it. It's okay to accept it. Just don't let it overwhelm you. Don't let it run the show. Guilt is normal. It's normal in our everyday lives. How many of us look back at some of the stupid things we did when we were kids, teenagers, young adults, and we feel guilty about it? I mean, everyone has that. You love your parents, hopefully, and you love your spouse or partner, hopefully. And what I've learned as an OT and as a daughter who cared for her mom, is that you are allowed, without a doubt, to set boundaries. You have got to set boundaries again, to not only take care of yourself, but to take care of your relationships, your friendships, your, with your partner, spouse, with your mother, your father, and your own self, your own routine. You do yoga every day, don't give that up. Don't give it up. I mean, there's some days emergencies occur, of course, but set boundaries. The sooner you do that, the easier it'll be for the other parties involved in your life to accept it. Maybe you can't go to lunch every Thursday with your friends, but maybe every other Thursday. You just want to set boundaries so that you're not so overwhelmed and basically worn down emotionally and physically. All right. So instead of thinking I have to do A and I can't do B because I'm doing A, then instead of thinking that, think of integrating or half and half. Instead of saying, I have a friend who would go spend 6, 7, 8 hours with her mother every day for months and months and months. There was nothing she could do. Her mother was immobile. She was in a nursing home, but my friend went there anyway and sat there. Her mother would scream at her, would yell at her, would throw things at her, would call her horrible names, everything, partly because of dementia, partly because she was angry that she was in a nursing home, but she could not function on her own. She simply couldn't. She needed the help. She needed medical attention 24/7. And she was angry and she took it out on her daughter. But her daughter still went there anyway. Thankfully, she has an extremely forgiving husband, but it didn't have to be that way because emotionally it tore my friend up and she's still recovering from it even over a year after her mother has passed away. So instead of 8 hours a day with her mom, make it 2 hours a day. Have a set time from 10 to 12 or from 11 to 1, during lunch, whatever. I'm going to be there with you. I'll be there, except on Sundays. On Sundays, I go to church and I go to the beach with my husband and we enjoy our time together. But the rest of the time, you can allocate. She has children to allocate to. She has a husband to allocate to. She has a job to allocate to. Thankfully, she could do her job everywhere, anywhere. But at the same time, it's very stressful and you're not very productive when you're being disrupted with everything else around you. So instead of just saying, I can only do A or I can only do B, figure out a way to set boundaries and integrate both into your daily life. Ask yourself, what kind of help is it that your parents actually need? And what can be delegated? Can you get respite care? Can you get somebody to come in the morning to help bathe and dress and give your mom breakfast, or in the evening for dinner? Where can my spouse and I connect, even in small, meaningful ways? Can you text each other during the day, video chat each other during the day? Maybe both of you go and be with your elderly parents for every Wednesday or Tuesday or whatever, and the both of you are there. Maybe, you watch sports on a Saturday there with the elderly parents, anything at all where you can integrate the two. Of course, this isn't something you make up in your own mind. You have an idea of what boundaries you can do, and then discuss it with your partner and see what they're willing to do and how they can incorporate it, time with you. And if it's possible, discuss it with your elderly parents. If they're cognitively intact, if they're willing to talk about it with you. Some older parents, I saw this a lot as a occupational therapist, is they would manipulate time with their children away from everyone else. They would make them feel guilty about not spending enough time with them. So you want to definitely be aware of those little manipulative actions. And again, that's where a counselor can help you. If you feel you can't afford a counselor, I mean, there's so many virtual counselors now. It's not as if that you have to get up and go to an office anymore. But if you feel you can't do that, then I would encourage you to join a support group of family caregivers. You learn so much from how other people are managing their lives. Some are doing so much better than others and why, and they get to discuss it all. It's very freeing to be in a room where other people are suffering your same pain, and you can learn from them. And hey, they can learn from you too. All right. Think about what you may be avoiding. You don't want to avoid conversations like boundary conversations, financial conversations, end of life conversations. You don't want to avoid those not only with senior parents, but with your partner as well. Those should always be discussed. Personally, I think all of that should be, done along with the wedding vows. I mean, it's just something that is life, and it should be part of what the both of you should know about each other. And again, if you feel like you need a person, a mediator there with you, consider that. Speak to people, friends who may be in your same position. An elder law attorney may be able to help you with finding some type of a mediator. A geriatric care manager may be someone who can help as well. A social worker, they may be able to help you find the right person that can help you mediate these conversations with your loved ones. All right. The next thing I want to say is something that is very difficult for a lot of people, including my friend who I mentioned before, who would go sit with her mother for 8 hours a day. It's extremely important to be as honest as possible with everyone. Be honest with your parents, be honest with your partner. Now, I get it. And I'm talking about being honest with your feelings. If you're sitting in the parking lot at the nursing home, or if you're sitting in the driveway at your parents' house, just sitting there with your eyes closed, just thinking, I don't want to go in. I don't want to go in. You need to discuss those feelings, those emotions in a tactfully way, of course, with your parents. You need to say, look, I'm really feeling torn. I'm really feeling overwhelmed. I need your help. I want to help you. I really do. But at the same time, I also need time with my partner. I also need time to work. I need time with my children, whatever it is. People in that sandwich generation probably have the highest stress level of anyone, I think, except maybe somebody working at a nuclear plant. I don't know. But it's extremely emotionally draining to be in that constant state of stress. So be honest. I love you. I want to help you, but I just simply can't. Sorry, I keep forgetting to turn this off. But I simply can't because I just don't have the time or the energy. I can feel myself getting worn. What can we do? Again, setting the boundaries, setting a schedule is so important. And it really does help. It really does help. I did that with my own mother and my sister, and it was the best thing, because then they all knew what was expected without any surprises. The next thing that I want you to think about, and you can do this with a social worker, occupational therapist, physical therapist, um, a counselor if you're seeing one, is to create a caregiving plan. Now, if you've been through the process of therapies before, you know that when you walk into an OT or a PT or counselor, the very first thing that they're going to start doing after the initial interview is to create a treatment plan. All right, so this is the problem, and this is what I'm going to do to help this person with this problem. A caregiving plan is the same kind of thing. It's something that you can write down on paper so everyone can see it, everyone understands it. Think of it like a prenup. Everything is laid out in your prenup. Who gets what happens when, if, whatever, all of that. A caregiving plan is kind of the same thing. So you're looking at all the tasks and activities depending on what it is that your parents need. Do they need rides to the doctor? Do they need rides to a social event? Do they need their house cleaned? Do they need meals prepared? Do they need medication administered? Do they just need social activities? Do they need their bills paid? And then your partner. You want to maintain your date night. You want to maintain your activities that you're doing together, volunteer activities, and your children, their school activities, and homework, and your job, all the hours that you have to put in there. Of course, you're going to discuss all of this. You should always discuss, if you take over caregiving, you should always discuss it with your boss. That's for sure. That way they understand what's going on and can work with you, hopefully, if they're a good boss and it's a good company. But then once you have everything written down, and don't expect to be able to think of everything right at once as you go along with the caregiving process, and living through it, you'll be able to add things and to subtract things from this ongoing list. But at the same time, once you have the items listed, then you want to be able to, break them up into what can be outsourced. Can you call Uber to take them to doctor's offices? Can you rely on, friend A to cook meals for them every Tuesday, or maybe have home delivered meals? Can you hire a maid to come in once a week to clean the house? Um, Things like that. What items on that list can be shared? What's something that you can do along with siblings or friends or your partner or your kids? What items can be shared? Because if it's something that is done as a team work, then it's much better for everyone in the family. I always felt growing up that I was never really part of the family, and I think my siblings feel the same way because our parents kept us away from everything. I think they thought they were protecting us, by not telling us anything at all, but it made us um, apart from the family. And I always admire families who do things together, who go volunteer together, who have weekly family meetings and weekly dinners and anything like that, where they discuss it. They're a team, they're working together. So you're the mother, most often it's the women who are the caregivers. You're the mother, you have a husband or a partner, and you have two children who are, I don't know, middle school, high school years. There is no reason why all four of you can't pitch in and do whatever can, be done to help with the aging parents. There's no reason. Work on the yard, clean the house, prepare meals, drive to appointments, events, whatever. If you share it, then it becomes more a team effort, and it teaches the family also what you're going through. It's not so surprising to them when all of a sudden you fall apart and start screaming and yelling and ranting and raving and crying, and you don't know why. And your family doesn't know why, because you're not allowing them to come in and see what you're doing. So definitely create the caregiving plan with everyone involved. If your parents are cognitively intact, they may be able to help. And then what things can wait? Is there anything on that list that can wait to another time? Maybe home modifications, maybe, I don't know, vacations, or maybe this year is not a good year to do that. Maybe next year, I don't know. So consider, whatever needs to be done on that list and have honest discussions about it. Having that caregiving plan can be difficult to create. I know it takes time, but like anything, it's 90% planning and 10% doing. So if you can devote yourself to that time, to creating that plan, and knowing that it's flexible, that you'll be adding and subtracting, especially as your parents age and their needs start changing, you can be flexible and, have a regular weekly meeting about it, maybe, or monthly or whatever. But a caregiving plan is extremely important. Don't ever put your relationship second to your elderly parents. Sometimes you'll have to. There's going to be some days or weeks, emergencies come up, you have to run to the hospital, whatever. Some days you'll have to, absolutely. But if you do that on a regular basis for weeks, for months, it will suffer and it does not always come back. I saw so many divorces during my years as an OT of caregivers just leaving their spouses because they were devoting so much time to the elderly parent. Is that really what your parent wants? Do they really want you to destroy your relationship for them? I hope not. But small moments really do matter. So FaceTime, incorporate your partner into the caregiving process. Text all the time. Well, not, you know, not 100 times a day, but you know what I mean. Be involved in that part. Make sure you have dinner with them every night or as many nights as possible. Just do what it is that you feel you need to do, that the two of you discuss can be done together in order to keep the marriage going or keep the relationship going. We all know it takes time and effort to keep a relationship going. You know, there's no such thing as, the Hallmark couple. At least I haven't seen one. So, yeah, always keep that a priority. And remember that you yourself, as I said before, you deserve support. You can't do it alone. It's impossible to do it alone. It will harm you in more ways than you can imagine. And I get a lot of emails from our readers and YouTube comments saying, I am alone. There is no one around me, no one at all. And I always have to think to myself, well, I mean, what does that mean? Are they living out in the middle of the desert and never ever go anywhere? There's no church that they go to that can help them. They don't volunteer for anything or had volunteered for anything. They don't have friends. They probably do, but they kind of let them go because now they're devoting so much time to this elderly parent, which is exactly what happened to my friend, spending all those hours, all those months for so long with her mother, her friendships just kind of went away. She didn't let them in. She didn't let them in on what she was going through. And they didn't know, so they couldn't help. When they did reach out, she couldn't do anything because she was with her mother. So you don't want to let go of that. I don't really believe that unless you're living out in the middle of the desert, 100 miles from anybody, that you're truly, truly alone. You just haven't reached out. Even if you truly don't know anyone that can help you, there's agencies, there's state agencies, local non-profit groups that can help. You just have to reach out because you deserve support as well. Home health agencies, like I said, geriatric care managers, physicians, social workers, and support groups. Even if it's not a support group you can get up and go to, there are so many support groups online where you can get a lot of this information for yourself. And who knows, you may find somebody in your own area or state. So I hope that this information spoke to you. If you find yourself in this sandwich generation, in this sandwich situation where you're caring for so many other people around you, you can't ignore caring for yourself. You've heard it said 100,000 times, but it's up to you to actually implement the actions to take care of yourself. If you found this helpful, please give this video a thumbs up because it helps that video then to get shown to other people looking for this problem, answers to this problem. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't yet subscribed. And we're always giving out information on caregiving skills, aging in place, and staying grounded through the whole aging process, not only for older adults, but for their children as well, their adult children and grandchildren. So I hope this information was useful, and I thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will catch you next time. Take care.